Good afternoon and welcome to your news on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Shehan Ranatunga. Could mankind be returning to the moon? I will have more details coming up, but up next, it's your headlines.
Fertilizer ban has caused the fall of the local tea industry, State Minister admits in Parliament. Sri Lanka's economy can be stabilized next year, a statement from the governor of the central bank. G20 leaders see deteriorating debt issues in some middle-income countries. Rare surgery performed at the Badulla General Hospital. Trump launches 2024 US presidential run.
Now on to your top story. After repeated fuel leaks, 2 hurricanes and a pair of launch delays, engineers refueled NASA's $4.1 billion Space Launch System rocket for a third launch.
3, 2, 1. Booster.
The Artemis 1 launch kicked off a long-awaited maiden flight to send an uncrewed Orion capsule to circle the moon. Artemis 1, formerly Exploration Mission 1, is the first integrated test of NASA's deep space exploration systems, the Orion spacecraft, Space Launch System SLS rocket, and the ground systems at the Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, Florida. The first in a series of increasingly complex missions, Artemis 1 is an uncrewed flight test that will provide a foundation for human deep space exploration and demonstrate our commitment and capability to extend human existence to the moon and beyond. During the flight, the spacecraft will launch on the most powerful rocket in the world and fly farther than any spacecraft built for humans has ever flown. It will travel 280,000 miles from Earth, thousands of miles beyond the moon over the course of about 4 to 6 weeks, a mission.
Control. The 4 core stage engines are throttling down ahead of passing through max Q. Now 1 minute 21.
Now, Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe told a forum organized by the Ceylon Institute of Builders that to ease the current pressure, it is important for the government to settle the arrears.
And I'm confident that we should be able to stabilize the economy next year, but get the recovery back to a normal growth path will take at least not in 2023, probably in 2024 onwards. The best thing I would recommend to the government, and the government has also commitment. First one is to settle the areas that will ease some of the pressures. And going forward, I think one second we stabilize, one to ease the restrictions. People who can compete globally, for the time being, I think you should be able to, you should try projects. I'm sure they have your capacity and ability. Certain firms, they should be able to compete and find, at least earn in foreign exchange. Even professionals who are involved in, like architects, contract service, I'm sure there will be opportunities.
Now, the leaders of the group of 20 major economies will express concern about the deteriorating debt situation facing some vulnerable middle-income countries and call on all official and private creditors to respond swiftly to requests for debt treatment. A draft of the G20 leaders' declaration includes far stronger language about debt issues and acknowledges that the problems extend far beyond just the poorest nations.
The draft stressed the importance of all official and private creditors participating in debt relief and shouldering a fair burden. But it did not mention China, which has been criticized by Western countries and the international financial institutions for delaying debt restructuring efforts. The leaders said they would step up efforts to implement the common framework for debt treatment in a predictable, timely, orderly and coordinated manner. The framework was created by the G20 and the Paris Club of Official Creditors in late 2020 to help low-income countries weather the COVID-19 crisis. However, results have proven elusive and only 3 countries, Chad, Zambia and Ethiopia, have formally applied for debt treatment under the framework. G20 leaders also welcomed a debt agreement reached by Chad's creditors and encouraged the timely conclusion of a debt treatment for Zambia by early 2023. They also encouraged the conclusion of a debt treatment for Ethiopia under the IMF-supported program. IMF and World Bank leaders, along with officials from the United States and other Western powers, have pushed unsuccessfully to expand the G20 framework to include vulnerable middle-income countries, but that effort has been blocked by China, now the world's largest sovereign creditor. The draft declaration acknowledges for the first time the severity of debt problems facing middle-income countries in what experts said was a clear reference to Sri Lanka, which reached a staff-level agreement with the IMF in early September, but needs to get financing assurances from multiple creditors, including China and Japan, to secure disbursements.
Now in other news, the National Elections Commission said that the members for local government bodies will be announced by Gazette by the 20th of March 2023 after declaring elections.
Commissioner General of the National Elections Commission, Samansri Ratnayaka, told Newsfirst that the necessary steps will be taken to ensure that the new session of the local government bodies will commence by the 20th of March 2023. He said that the National Election Commission is empowered with the necessary legal provisions. However, views are being expressed that the appointment of a delimitation commission for local government bodies will not permit for elections to take place by the 20th of March. Chairman of the Delimitation Commission and former Elections Commissioner Mahinda Deshapriya recently said that the appointment of a delimitation commission will not obstruct the process of calling for local government elections. Sri Lanka has 341 local government bodies.
Now, Sri Lanka's Ministry of Wildlife and Forest Resources Conservation has blamed the unruly conduct of a caretaker or mahout for causing serious harm and torture to the Muthuraja tusker, who was held at the Kanda Viharaya in Alutgama.
The tusker Muthuraja was gifted by Thailand to Sri Lanka in 2001 during the presidency of Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga, and it was moved to the Kanda Viharaya in Alutgama. The tusker, however, fell ill multiple times while at the Kanda Viharaya in Alutgama. Recently, a delegation from the Thai embassy in Colombo visited the Kanda Viharaya to inquire into the well-being of the tusker, and following their inspection, it was decided to move the tusker out of the temple and place it under the case of the Dehiwala National Zoo. The Ministry of Wildlife and Forest Resources Conservation said the Muthuraja tusker is now under the protective care of the Dehiwala National Zoo and its staff. However, the Thai ambassador had decided to send the tusker back to Thailand. A statement from the Ministry of Wildlife and Forest Resources Conservation said that Minister Mahinda Amaravira had instructed the secretary to the ministry to immediately discuss the matter with the Thai ambassador, as the Department of National Zoological Gardens had agreed to take care of the tusker.
A wild elephant had died after it came into contact with an illegal overhead power line drawn off an abandoned military camp in Megalava.
The Wildlife Office in Megalava said 3 soldiers who were assigned for the security of the premises were arrested. The dead wild elephant was 8 feet tall and was about 25 to 30 years. The arrested soldiers will be produced before the Galgamu Magistrates Court on Wednesday. Remains of an elephant chopped into several pieces was discovered buried in a cultivation in Kandegama, Aragan Villa. Wildlife officers suspect the elephant may have died by electrocution, and the police investigation is underway to locate the owner of the cultivation over the murder of the wild elephant.
Now, the topic of assets and liabilities took center stage during Wednesday's budget debate.
Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena, opening the debate on Wednesday, said that the 2023 budget presented by the President covers a plethora of sectors and will move Sri Lanka to a new path of making its budget for transformation. He said the speciality of the budget is that the government will give priority to joint planning and management, adding it should not be politicized. The Prime Minister said, irrespective of the criticism, the budget as a whole will allow the country to rise from the present crisis and request the House for support for its passage. However, opposition lawmaker Iran Wickramaratne told the parliament that after 45 years, parliament has proven that one can be coerced to accept another opinion, where the president has managed to rope in the SLPP-led prime minister, who is also from a leftist party. The MP said the 2023 budget has given a hallucination for the people, as the proposals do not speak of any practical implementation. The opposition MP called on the president, along with all MPs and ministers, as well as former presidents, to declare their assets and liabilities. Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena responded to state that former President Mahinda Rajapaksa had in fact submitted his assets and liabilities on the 30th of June 2022. However, MP Wickramaratne said the assets and liabilities must be made public.
Now, the opposition leader Sajith Premadasa, speaking in Parliament on Wednesday, commented on how the tea industry was affected by the fertilizer crisis in Sri Lanka.
One of the main reasons for the collapse of Sri Lanka's tea industry is the government's decision to use organic fertilizer. I believe that we should look at the tea industry not only as the industry that generates dollars into the country, but also as the industry that generates income to about 2.5 million of Sri Lanka's population. The tea industry has been severely affected by the shortage of fertilizers and pesticides. Before the policy for organic fertilizer was implemented, a sack of fertilizer was 1,500 rupees, but now it is 15,500 rupees. What is your solution to the community depending on the tea industry?
The
opposition leader's statement is true. It was sold at 1,500 rupees when the ban on chemical fertilizer was lifted. The price of urea in the world market had risen, and therefore we had to sell it at 15,500 rupees. The tea industry was severely affected by that move. The Cabinet of Ministers were aware that when this topic came up at the Cabinet meeting, as the Minister of Plantation Industries, I was completely against it. I agree that it was an issue for the tea industry, but it is heading towards normalcy once again.
I
don't think you can face the tea industry and others after making such statements. Tea factories have been shut down. How can you disagree with that? I agree there is a drop of 10 to 15%. I was the one who disagreed to this first at the cabinet meeting. $3.8 billion was generated by the plantation industry during the last year. That is the highest it has been in the history of Sri Lanka. If that statement is false, I will resign from my position tomorrow.
Now, the national organizer of the Samagi Vanita Balavegya, Hirunika Premachandra, commented on the 2023 budget and said it was complete deception.
Ranil
Rajapaksa, as the president, presented a budget that deceives the people. He said that the rupee was strong. That's a lie. It was like adding flavor to feces. Millions have been allocated for projects, but no provisions have been made to uplift the lives of the people who have been battered by the crisis. This is a budget that provides relief. Hirunika Premachandra appeared in court on Wednesday for a case filed over the abduction of a youth. Colombo High Court Judge Amal Ranaraja ordered the evidence examination in the case to commence on the 30th of January 2023. Defence counsel sought time from court to analyse the video footage that has been produced as evidence in the case and thereafter to make submissions. Accordingly, after considering the request, Justice Amal Ranaraja ordered for the case to be postponed to the 30th of January 2023.
Now, the final rites of the student and her father who were killed in a tragic accident in Mirigama on Monday will be performed on Wednesday.
A car driver under the influence hit a high school student and her father in Mirigama on Monday, killing them instantly. The accident claimed the lives of a 54-year-old father of two and his 14-year-old daughter. remains of the deceased were brought to their home in Kalyala Mirigama on Tuesday. Final rites will be performed at the Mirigama Public Cemetery on Wednesday.
Now, the principal of the Millennium Primary School, the Millennium Police Inspector and the police sergeant who were arrested and remanded for torturing children were released on bail by Colombo Additional Magistrate Keminda Pereira. The suspects were released on 2 personal bails of 1 million rupees each. They were arrested by the National Child Protection Authority for allegedly torturing several grade 5 students at the Millennium Primary School for allegedly stealing the wallet of a school teacher. The President's Counsel, who appeared for the suspects, made submissions in court, and thereafter the additional magistrate granted bail. Counsel for the National Child Protection Authority, appearing in court, said that the investigations into the incident are almost complete. Counsel also said that the parents and custodians of the students who were allegedly tortured had not given their consent for the students to be produced to a judicial medical officer. The case will be called up again on the 18th of January 2023. Now, surgeons at the Badulla General Hospital have successfully removed a spinal abscess from a 41-year-old man. Surgeons at the Badulla General Hospital told Newsfirst that the abscess had spread to the 41-year-old man's spine, kidneys and the liver. Specialist Dr. Lakmal Hevage told Newsfirst that the abscess, weighing over 1 kilogram, was removed by a group of neurosurgeons, cancer specialists and genitourinary surgeons. The entire surgery took almost 6 hours and the patient is expected to make a full recovery. 11 people were injured after a van fell into a canal in the Meegahatana town in Matugama.
Sri Lanka police said a van travelling from Katunayaka to Galle met with an accident on Wednesday morning. Those injured were immediately sent to the Meegahatana hospital, and following which a few of the injuries were transferred to the Kalutara Nagura General Hospital. It was reported that the injured were residents of Galle.
World leaders gathering at the G20 summit in Bali are attempting to defuse a potential escalation in the months-long Ukraine war after a Russian-made missile landed inside NATO member Poland, killing 2 people.
The missile landed outside the rural Polish village of Przebodo, about 6.4 kilometers west from the Ukrainian border on Tuesday, roughly the same time as Russia launched its biggest wave of missile attacks on Ukrainian cities in more than a month. The circumstances surrounding the incident, which marks the first time a NATO country has been directly struck during the almost 9-month conflict, remain unclear. It is not known who fired the missile or where it was fired from, though the Polish Foreign Ministry has described it as Russian-made. Both Russian and Ukrainian forces have used Russian-made munitions during the conflict, with Ukraine deploying Russian-made missiles as part of their air defense system. The Kremlin has denied involvement in the explosion, with Russia's defense ministry calling the reports by Polish media, who first reported the death, a deliberate provocation in order to escalate the situation.
Now, Donald Trump says he plans to run for the US presidency in the year 2024, vowing America's comeback starts right now.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump addressed supporters in an hour-long speech at his Florida estate, Mar-a-Lago. The former president has a massive campaign war chest and remains popular with the Republican base. But he has been blamed for the Republicans' disappointing performance in the midterm elections, with the predicted red wave failing to materialize.
In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States.
To run for president, Trump would have to win the Republican Party's nomination, but others are expected to compete for it. Republicans are also on the cusp of taking a majority in the House of Representatives. However, it would be a narrow one. Republicans on Tuesday edged closer to majority control of the U.S. House of Representatives, a midterm victory tempered by the unexpectedly narrow margin they will hold over Democrats, as they are showing 2 years of divided government. Democrats retained control of the U.S. state after keeping seats in the swing states of Arizona and Nevada, and could win an outright majority if Democrat Senator Raphael Warnock beats Republican challenger Herschel Walker in a Georgia runoff on the 6th of December. The divided Congress next year will mean Biden has a far tougher time advancing his agenda.
And that's it from the news team for now. Thank you for joining us and have a great day.